Hey game makers! Whether you're making a serious epic or a short game just for the lulz, I wanted to share some tips that I found helpful for starting and sticking to a project. These can really apply to most types of creation, whether it be games, art, writing, or what have you. But as I get asked this quite frequently, I figured it'd be fun to do a video on it and share my thoughts with you. 1. RPG Maker doesn't have to be limited to just what's there when you start it up. Half the fun of the program is pushing it to its limits and seeing what you can do with it. Instead of thinking, what can this program do? Try thinking, what can I make this program do? Even with just the basics, say a battle system, with the power of our community, we've got plugins that can go far beyond what's already there. And if you're not plugin savvy, take a jump into it and try inventing something complex. The worst that can happen is what you're trying doesn't work out, but then you know, and you can try something else. Though RM is primarily used for making classic-feeling role-playing games, it's an easy tool to use that, with enough thought, can be made to do a lot of different things. My brother once invented a Mega Man game in RMXP. Mind you, at that point it might be easier to switch to a different program that has what you're looking for as its starting point. But all in all, it can be done. It's also important to consider how these mechanics affect the gameplay and story you're trying to tell. And if a game is actually the best medium for your story to be told in. Maybe your story would actually work better as a written novel or a comic or an animation. But that gets a little past the getting started phase of little ol' RPG Maker, so we'll save that for a separate video. 2. Practice first. A lot of people start with the mindset of, I'm gonna make a 60-hour epic, and then stop 3 maps in. I'd make your first complete project short. If you need a length, I'd say about an hour at most. But before we even get to that, spend some time just playing with it. To get familiar with something, you need to use it a lot. I'd start by making some random maps, making random fights with monsters and spells, and by the end of it, you'll likely have a bunch of miscellaneous maps that you can run around in and do stuff on. Now, this might not work for everyone, but this lets you test things out and experiment without being tied down to an actual project. This is incredibly useful to avoid the constant, I'm restarting my project because I got better and everything I have is crap cycle. If you feel like you're confident in what you can do, jump into a short project and try to complete it. If you can, you're probably ready to go all out and give your major project a try. Clearly, you'll still learn things and improve as you go, but the basics, the foundation of any concept, are needed before you can get into the bigger and better stuff. Otherwise, let's say, that house you're trying to build will just come crashing down on you. 3. Take breaks and do things in chunks. So you've got a great idea. You want to run with it and keep working on it and never stop. This is great, and I definitely take advantage of that time. But usually, at least for longer projects, or if you tend to get busy, there's gonna be a lull where you aren't really that motivated and don't have time to work on it. This is fine, normal, and very, very common. The pitfall to avoid here is where you don't go back to your project. If you start feeling burnt out, take a break and do something else that inspires you. In my case, when I need a break, I binge watch anime and play the games I love, and play on swings. This gives me a chance to absorb new ideas if I'm at a roadblock, calm down and chill, or research other media. What I mean by this is, when you're watching, say, your favorite show, or playing your favorite game, try to figure out why they're doing things a certain way, or compare it to what you would have done instead. I kid you not, I once spent an entire playthrough of FF9 analyzing its level curve, and seeing how I would have done it better. Back to while you're working on your project, to avoid frequent I want to quit what did I get myself into moments, switch things up a lot. For me, I usually do things in chunks. I map the area, then do NPCs and other events, then do cutscenes, and then I usually update my NPCs to reflect anything that's changed since the cutscene. If the area has monsters, I add them last and stat them based on the progress of my save file that I'm testing on. This isn't the be-all end-all idea on the matter. There are times when you need to map or need to write a cutscene, but for the most part, if you're losing your drive for the certain part you're doing, switch it up and do something else, then go back to it after. 4. Pre-organize your game. Okay, you're starting a game. You probably don't have every skill, item, armor, weapon, common event, cats, dogs, and muffins completely planned out yet. I'd make a rough estimate of how many skills and such you'll need by looking at other games that you think did it well, and then section off each area of the database. For example, let's say Akira here uses piano skills. I've got no idea how many she'll have by the end of the day, so we're just going to label her section leave a good handful of things blank, or with base information, and then add in the next. I find this incredibly convenient for common events. I'd leave a large space at the top for any spur-of-the-moment creations, then create sections down below for anything specific, like map common events, or startup common events, or battle common events, and so forth. You get the idea. I also do this for variables and switches. For example, having plot switches start at the top, or having puzzle variables 100 down. I wish I'd done this for my first game, as there's nothing of the same kind of tedious, like having no idea where to find anything, trying to change it later, and then breaking your entire game. 5. Find what you enjoy about working on a project. Now, if you're working in a group, you're usually working on the part you like. If you're working solo, then you kinda gotta do mostly everything. I know for me, I like doing characters and story and graphics and mapping if it's not a cave. But mechanics, not so much. I'm improving, but I just don't find it as interesting to me. I have friends that go on and on about their game's mechanics, and they're awesome! They can come up with ideas left and right, and I'm just here like, look at my pretty water, it's so pretty! Try to find what you love about the games you play, and what you love working on in your own projects. That way, even when you're stuck doing the less than fun parts, you've got the self-motivation to say, as soon as I'm done this, I get to work on the fun stuff again! These are just a few tips I found useful in getting started and sticking to a project. I hope you found these helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time, gamers!